Joining us online is Johnnie Moore. He's the executive chairman of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a U.S. and Israeli-backed nonprofit focused on food aid distribution in Gaza. Johnnie, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben. Good to be with you.
So in a second, I want to get into the origins of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, what led to its creation. But let's talk about, obviously, the vast PR attempt by Hamas and its allies in the media and in European governments, apparently, to suggest that Israel and the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation are complicit in a mass starvation campaign against the Gazan population of Palestinians. What exactly is GHF doing? Where are these allegations coming from? What's happening in the food lines?
Well, first of all, it's coming from Hamas. So the Hamas Health Ministry, the Hamas the government media office, every single day, they create some fabricated story and the media just runs with it. And by the way, Ben, it's not just stories. I mean, this morning, we had a rocket attack. So literally Hamas shot a rocket. Thank God it missed, but it was aiming for one of our distribution sites. And the net effect is that there are many, many people in Gaza that the one thing Hamas wants to do is make sure that they don't get food. And while I'm talking to you now, I mean, today we will surpass 90 million meals of food delivered to the people of Gaza. We're doing that with the whole UN against us, most of the press against us, Hamas threatening us, trying to literally killing our local Gazan aid workers a couple of weeks ago. It's just absolutely unbelievable.
You know, when we talk about what Hamas is doing and the complicity of the United Nations, a lot of people are suggesting Hamas obviously wants the UN to distribute the food in Gaza because they work with the UN. I mean, the UNRWA was essentially a wing of Hamas. What they're hoping is the UN will bring in the food, just give it to Hamas. Hamas's very survival at this point is essentially reliant on either hijacking, stealing, or being given enormous amounts of food aid, not because they need it to eat, but because they then resell it at these Gazan markets at inflated prices. And then they use that money in order to obtain further weaponry and do what they need to do in the Gaza Strip. Is that the dynamic? Because it's pretty obvious that right now they are openly negotiating to not have GHF be the food distributor and to have the UN be the food distributor in any sort of hostage deal.
Yeah, it's actually worse than that. So not only has the UN become the press secretary for Hamas, the UN actually is, I believe, complicit in the whole thing. I mean, while we're talking right now, this is crazy, but it's true. There are 950 trucks of UN aid, not outside of the Gaza Strip, inside of the Gaza Strip, ready to be distributed, but the UN won't distribute it, and they won't let us distribute it for them. In fact, they boycotted us from the moment we started. We started because on May 5th, President Trump said in the White House, he said that Hamas was stealing the food of the Gazan people and the United States was going to do something about it. And so we have one mission, which is to get food to the people of Gaza in a way that Hamas can't steal it. Because not only are they selling it and taxing it, and not only have they made $1 billion from it over the course of the war, they also were using the UN aid convoys to pass messages to their fighters. They were moving fighters from one part of the Gaza Strip to another part of the Gaza Strip. And the UN has they won't meet with us, by the way, but they have the audacity to say that we're not neutral because we've delivered this. Our sin is delivering 100 million meals for free to the people of Gaza that a terrorist organization can't steal.
So why is it that the UN is still in control of how aid is being distributed in the Gaza Strip? Who makes the decision as to, where those trucks go? You say that all these trucks are on the Gaza side of the border, not on the Israeli side of the Keren Shalom crossing, but on the Gaza side. So why is it the UN deciding that they should just sit there and molder in the sun?
The UN's playing politics. That's what they're doing. They're playing politics with people's lives. So they're sharing the Hamas propaganda. They're actually basically a willful participant on the Hamas side of the negotiating table in the ceasefire negotiations by refusing to distribute aid and spreading this narrative around the world that the people of Gaza are going to starve if Hamas doesn't, in effect, get its demands at the negotiating table. I mean, this is so unbelievably corrupt and profane. But what we've discovered over the course of this operation, one of the reasons why the UN boycotts us and never boycotts Hamas, why they oppose us at all costs and want us dismantled and shut down, is because, unfortunately, this whole system, this isn't just a Gaza problem. This is a global problem. There isn't a conflict in the world that hasn't been exacerbated and prolonged by this broken UN system. And yet the United States of America, until this administration has willfully funded it, our European allies, I mean, it's the official policy of the EU and of Germany, gigantic Germany, to continue funding UNRWA as the main source of aid. And so the UN has basically said it's UNRWA or else. And UNRWA, of course, is they're not just corrupt. I mean, UNRWA employees held hostages. There's one report I read that as many as 49% of UNRWA employees actually were directly connected to Hamas. So the UN has basically decided they're going to save UNRWA, even if it means that Palestinians die, the war is prolonged. I mean, I have never seen something so corrupt in all. In fact, I told our guys the other day, is it legal? Somebody asked somebody in the State Department, can we just take the UN aid and distribute it?
Yeah, so let's talk about what can be done, because as you say, if the UN is still very active in the Gaza Strip, why are they still very active in the Gaza Strip? Is that a decision by the United States, by Israel? Does the UN have some sort of independent authority? Like, why are they the ones who get to decide whether aid is distributed or not?
It's because actually we let them do it, and we don't put enough pressure on our allies to join us in fixing the corrupt system. I mean, the truth is, only right now, as I'm talking to you, only members of Congress basically that are in opposition or aligned with the Hamas side of this discussion are vocal about this at all. I mean, Republican members of Congress, unfortunately, we had an Iran war, we had, the big, beautiful bill, everything going on. Everybody's sort of asleep at the wheel. We have a once in a generation opportunity here to fix a broken system that is prolonged. If you are a peace through strength, if you don't want war, in this world, I'm a peace activist. I don't want any more war in this world if we can at all avoid it. But the system that was created to avoid it has become the rocket fuel for every conflict around the world. And it's time members of Congress step up and say enough is enough. The UN should not get a dime of American money as long as they don't work with GHF. The UN should not get a dime of American money if they can't guarantee their food isn't taken by armed actors and used by a globally designated terrorist organization.
Yeah, and this, I think, is one of the keys that the people need to recognize, is that it's not just what happens in Gaza that's dependent on the GHF. It is dependent, the entire Middle East is basically waiting for this problem to be solved, and it can be only solved if the GHF is distributing aid as opposed to the UN or the UNRWA or any other UN-linked agency, because there's so much waiting on this. Everybody wants to get to the end of this war except for Hamas. Hamas would like to prolong this because the minute the war is over, they're no longer in control. So anybody who's allied with Hamas, particularly maybe perhaps members of the Qatari government, are interested in prolonging this. But it seems that every time a negotiation takes place and the United States or Israel say, okay, fine, we're going to get the aid in, we're going to clean up the place, GHF is going to handle the aid. One of the main demands by Hamas is that GHF not do this, because Hamas recognizes that the danger to them lies in somebody who is not Hamas affiliated doing this. So if you believe that the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, for example, are dependent on an end to the war in Gaza, that can only happen if GHF is the one distributing the aid in safe areas, protected presumably by the Israeli military, because that is the military force on the ground. Any other quote unquote solution is not a solution. It is a prolongation of the war at the behest of Hamas, at the behest of Hamas's allies. So if you're looking for a more peaceful Middle East, if you're looking for an end to war in this arena, you need people distributing food to people who are not, in fact, terrorist organizations or helpers of terrorist organizations. That's why this issue is important. And frankly, it's why the Trump administration ought to be getting full scale, not just partially, full scale behind GHF is the only solution to aid distribution in the Gaza Strip.
That's exactly right. And the clock is ticking. We don't have time for people to play politics on this. We need to figure it out now. And organizations, it's not just the UN, it's other organizations, the UN World Food Program, it's UNICEF, it's all of them. And by the way, the United States should be more influential in appointing the leaders of these organizations as well.
Well, it's Johnnie Moore, Executive Chairman of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Johnnie, I just want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about how you got into this. Why are you doing this? Because whenever there are humanitarian organizations that are formed, there are always allegations that are made, particularly by the media, about some sort of ulterior motive. What is GHF? How did it start? How did you get involved with it?
Yeah, for me, first of all, I'm a volunteer. So, I'm a Christian, and I can't think of anything more Christian than feeding people who need food. I get involved because the U.S. government asked me if I would step in and help provide some leadership over this important initiative. But the ironic thing about GHF is that the idea actually originated more than a year and a half ago, as everyone was recognizing that the one problem that was prolonging this war is that every single truck of aid that got into the Gaza Strip was immediately stolen by Hamas. and then Hamas would use the aid. They would tax it, they would sell it, they would manipulate it. No one was willing to solve this problem, and the whole international system considered it the cost of doing business. And so the U.S. government decided to make a difference. It took Donald Trump to actually do it, to do something unconventional, to test and take on the whole system. And it will only take the full, strength of the United States government to succeed, not only in ending this war and getting the food directly to. And by the way, Gaza needs more food. We can't do it alone. And despite our disagreements with the UN, every single day we extend our hand and say, like, look, we can work out our differences later. We got to feed the people. But I did it because I really, really care about the entire region, and we have to solve this problem. Yeah. And by the way, Ben, we have already served over 800,000 Gazans. I mean, half of the Gaza Strip we've already provided food for. And if the world actually got behind us and the UN partnered with us, we could actually provide food for everyone in the Gaza Strip. We could meet all of the needs except for the ways in which Hamas uses the aid for their nefarious purposes. We could solve this problem if everyone stopped playing politics and did what they say they care about, which is feeding hungry people.
Well, that's Johnnie Moore, Executive Chairman of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Thank you so much for your hard work, and thanks for helping people truly in need. And obviously, we hope that both American, Israeli, international policy change in accordance with the real interests of people in the region. Appreciate your time, Johnnie.
Thanks for having me.